Grinding sucks. And I feel this is a sentiment that many gamers will agree on because having to do the same mind-numbing task for hours on end just to be able to do another possibly mind-numbing task is not exactly what would constitute as fantastic gameplay. Souls games, and especially Elden Ring, are not strangers to this concept, with some items requiring hours of Thanos snapping the same enemy again and again just to acquire a red glowy stick. But if I told you that there's a method called item duping to avoid hours of brain-smoothing diarrhea and basically achieve the same results, would you try it? If you did, some games would probably compare you to a war criminal.
No! What the hell are you doing?
And that's because to some gamers, item duping is considered cheating. So we had to ask ourselves, is item duping really cheating? Let's find out. A ver, las cosas como son. A nadie le gusta romperse el orto por 7 horas para conseguir la espada de la poronga sagrada. Es un hecho, gente. Es un puto hecho. Fortunately, Miyazaki coded in a way to potentially avoid having to grind like a dummy once you already beat the game and want to simply chill with a new build or character, as long as you have an internet connection, of course. For those unfamiliar, Elden Ring allows you to remove items from your inventory in 2 different ways: by discarding them, which basically erases the item out of existence, or by leaving them, which places them on the ground as a shiny to pick up. This may seem a bit odd to you if you're playing by yourself because there is literally zero use to this, but once you remember that the game is partially a multiplayer experience, it suddenly hits you. Ah, con esto puedes compartir cosas con los demás. Mira qué bueno. Not all items can be dropped, but it's safe to say that all of the important ones can. Now, since you're a very smart boy and your IQ is higher than the average chimpanzee, you realize that you could, in theory, make a copy of your save file, drop your friend your precious rivers of blood, reload your save file, and then have your friend drop you your rivers of blood back, thus now possessing 2 oversized tampons instead of 1. Congratulations! You just did some good old-fashioned duping. Dropping stuff has been a feature since the oldest of Souls games, allowing players to exchange items between each other or simply giving gifts to those ephemeral teammates we met in our journeys. At least that's what we believe was the intended use, according to Miyazaki's description on co-oping. However, gamers were quick to realize that this feature was more useful than intended, as using it to duplicate useful items would save tons of time on build creation, especially when you consider that some items can only be obtained once per playthrough or are easily missed. One example of this is the hammer talisman dropped by recusant Henricus in Limgrave. If you happen to beat Margit before ever fighting this guy, say goodbye to that talisman until New Game Plus. Just don't go missing it twice, you silly goose. You have access to your save files on all platforms where the game is available as well, so we can fairly assume that duping is a feature that was pretty much intended by the developers as extra means of build crafting. We would have preferred a better farming method though, but From Software seems to be going backwards with some game mechanics. But of course, we wouldn't really be discussing this topic today if a gamer duping their entire build had 0 consequences on anyone else's game experience. Or maybe we would because people like to complain about nearly anything. But that's not the point. If you happen to take the easy route on a game like Final Fantasy XII, where obtaining rare items can take longer than a galaxy's lifespan, cheating in all these hard-to-get gear and items would only affect you and nobody else but you when playing the game. In Souls games, though, gamers can be confronted by other players trying to halt their progress. These are called invaders.
Hello?
And have been a staple of Souls games for nearly 15 years by now. It is usually the norm for invaders to use optimized builds when invading in order to mitigate the already big disadvantages they have when facing multiple people. These optimized builds consist of, well, everything that is useful in PvP. Gamers that get invaded by these players will sometimes lose and get understandably angry at the fact that their executor had a huge supply of starlight shards, golem arrows, drawstring greases, boluses and pots at their disposal. And while this can be a valid complaint, it is usually not the sole reason why 3 people lost against one single dude with a lot of shit in his pockets. Duping is merely a big time saver. Let's pretend you want to farm golem arrows. They have an incredibly low drop rate, and oftentimes farming a lot of them will take hours on end. So if after finally obtaining some arrows, you decide to just dupe them with the help of a friend instead of farming for 69 more eons, Why wouldn't you? And it's not like having them in your inventory will make you magically win every fight either. Tener el arsenal a tu disposición no te garantiza la victoria, mucho menos en invasiones donde tenés a 3 monos con navajas persiguiéndote todo el tiempo y al más mínimo error te rompen el orto.
Same thing. What the fuck?
Tienen que saber cómo usar el arsenal para poder ganar. No sirve con solamente tenerlo. Un poquito de coherencia, por favor. Oftentimes, the complaints don't make sense at all. Some gamers complain about invaders with endgame gear in low-level invasions, when the best weapons for invading at low level, as well as some of the best ashes of war, can be all obtained as early as Limgrave. Best example of this being the Dragon Halberd, obtained after beating the Dragonkin's soldier in Siofra River, a relatively early boss. About 90% of low-level invasions can be won simply by using this thing, and you can obtain it in like 30 minutes after starting the game. There are a few exceptions, though. Scarlet Rot can be cured by either the Flame, Cleanse Me incantation, or Preserving Boluses. Both the tools to inflict rot and the things used to cure it are not available until much later in the game. So, naturally, some gamers will abuse this and use Scarlet Rot against low-level hosts in the early game who still don't have access to proper anti-rot items, making the invasion very hard for the host. Although these rot invaders can be beaten, it is still pretty much scummy to do this against defenseless hosts, but not against overleveled phantoms, though. Seriously, fuck those guys. Manga de forra. But overleveled phantoms are not the only thing you should be worrying about when invading in low level, because you know what sucks too? Steam retail prices. I mean, have you seen how much some of these games cost? Fortunately, I wouldn't worry too much if I were you, Lil Poggy, because instant gaming has got your back. As a website with over 10 million satisfied customers, Instant Gaming spits on the overinflated prices assigned by the man and offers great leniency to those economically challenged poggies who really want their 4th anime armpits video game. You can rest easy knowing that all of the amazing discounts in games, game cards, and subscriptions you can shop for in Instant Gaming are safely backed up by great Trustpilot reviews, alongside night and day customer support. And of course, it doesn't matter if you built an altar for Gabe Newell or Bill Gates, nor what console has replaced your dad's photo in the family picture book. Instant Gaming will always have you covered.
But wait! There's more!
By clicking my custom link in the description or pinned comment and creating an Instant Gaming account, you will participate in a free giveaway where you'll be able to purchase anything of your liking. No purchases necessary. Just creating an account is enough. So what are you waiting for? Those morally questionable games won't add themselves to your Steam library. Huge thanks to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Let me ask you something. Would it really make a difference to the invaded person if the invader got the things the normal, boring way? Would it make their defeat any less stingy? And I say defeat because no one complains when they win. Big coincidence, huh? All item duping does in high level is preventing you from having to restock on shit every 5 or 6 invasions. I mean, do you know how fast you can run out of shit in this game? Before you could buy strings in the DLC, drawstring greases were one of the most valuable items, and you'd be consuming them as if you were house poppin' Vicodin. Hosts don't really need them because they have the numbers advantage. So what difference would it make to you if someone spent 15 hours or 15 minutes getting their drawstring greases? We don't think that duping really matters that much on any level bracket, with the exception of rot in low level though. It is just the natural consequence of the game having a very poor farming system. There is actually zero reason for every consumable to not be purchasable on any game merchant, and crafting can be a pain in the ass once you already beat the game and just want to engage in PvP or co-op. Dale, flaco, no me voy a poner a juntar plantitas 20 horas seguidas como una pelotuda para poder craftear 99 bolas anti-rot para que no me rompan el ojete en invasiones. Quiero ponerme a empalar Kevins ya, no pasado mañana. La concha de tu madre. And if you still somehow feel you're at an unfair disadvantage when facing invaders that dupe items, maybe you should try duping as well. It's a tool available to anyone after all. In conclusion, can we really say that item duping is cheating? No. Not really. Even if you use Cheat Engine to pop in your stuff, it's still pretty much the same thing. People who don't know how to play will still have low chances of winning, no matter how much stuff they dupe in. And people who already beat the game deserve not having to go through the whole thing again just to craft a different build for a specific activity. FromSoft gave everyone the tool, and we can use it however we want. Just like how people summon to beat bosses and such. Whether you decide to use it or not is entirely up to you, and getting mad if someone else does use it won't help you at all. If you want to get mad at FromSoft for not implementing a better farming system. En serio, loco, ¿por qué carajo no puedo comprar bolas?